Can't really tell. That swirl thing still. Oh, no, there it went. All right. Looks like we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a live stream for Classic Gamers 74. And I'm Larry the Lion. And this is our first time going live. Let me see. Hold on. I think I'm kind of off center here. Or maybe it's me. No, I think we're all right. Yeah, I think so too. All right. All right. So this is our first time going live. I hope everybody at home is feeling okay. I hope you're safe. I hope you're all making the best of this bad situation. It's affecting all of us. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or a D- celebrity like me. Yeah, you don't have to agree with that. Sorry. But regardless, we're all in this together. So please make sure that you are following all the guidelines set by the, hold on a second. Set all the guidelines set by the CDC. Please remember to follow all the guidelines. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Like I said, we'll get through this. I mean, this is, you know, just one of those things that happens that we have, you know, no control over. So I guess one of the best things to do is just catch up on stuff you need to do around the house. Yeah, like for instance, my wife Lillian is cleaning. She never cleans before? No, it's not that. It's you know, early spring cleaning. Oh, you mean the type where you move stuff and clean stuff that never gets moved and cleaned under? Yep, exactly. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's one thing to do. Plus also, you know, hobbies. I mean, think about some of the stuff that you've thought about doing in the past. You picked up some stuff or I mean, you got some things like, let's say for instance, you got like, I don't know, arts and crafts kind of thing. Like maybe you, I don't know, like maybe count a cross stitch or latch hook set. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. Probably, you know, some engraving, I guess. Yeah. Another thing I've always wanted to get, actually my dad had one when I was a kid, was wood burning. Oh, really? Yeah. He had this really cool, you know, wood burning. It looked like a giant, it was like big. It was like, oh God, it was about a foot long. And, you know, you used it and you like drew a picture on something on a wooden surface. And then you would go through it, and you know, just depending on how hard you pushed, and like you could, you know, move it to the side and you know, make the line thicker, but you just used it to draw like a picture permanently in the wood, and it looked really nice. You know, I think my wife has one in the garage somewhere, or maybe in her craft, you know, area. So I'm thinking about, you know, doing something like that. Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I did a couple mess with it a little bit when I was a kid, but you know, being as I was a kid, my dad's like, don't use that unless I'm there to watch you. So I mean, you know, oh yeah, I never let my kids do that. Well, I don't blame you. I mean, you know, kids with, you know, anything flammable is not really a good idea. Oh no. So, well, anyway, it says we got a couple people on there. Again, feel free to ask some questions if you like, chat along with us. Let us know about the channel, some games you'd like to discuss, or some, you know, anything about related to the channel or anything else. I mean, you know, you just want to say hey, or, you know, whatever, just, you know, let us know. So anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. I think you were going to talk about the next video. Oh yeah, that's right. I was. Okay, now we got a video coming up. It's probably going to be uploaded on tomorrow. In a perfect world, it'll be up by tomorrow night. More than likely, it'll be on Monday night, and we're doing one on Laserdisc games. Now, a lot of you probably remember those. If you're my age or older, you remember seeing those at the arcade. Now, I'll never forget the first time I saw Dragon's Lair. I was, God, oh, I don't remember how that was, but we used to have two malls in town, we had, well, actually not in this town. I mean, we drove from Demont, Wheatfield up to Maryville, Indiana, and there used to be two malls there. There was South Lake Mall and Century Mall. Okay. Now, Century Mall had a really cool arcade. It was really, I mean, it was just games galore. I mean, you just name a game and they had it there. And so it was there that I first saw Dragon's Lair. And I remember thinking when I saw the game, and I'm like, okay. And I watched the preview, because every video game has a preview that they show you before you put the quarter in. Yep. And I didn't, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's a heck of an intro, but the game's not going to be like that. I'm going to put the quarter in and it's just going to be like your usual space shooter or something like that. Yep. Well, of course, the game cost more than a quarter. I think it was 50 cents. So I put the 2 quarters in and I was just like, holy shit, I'm playing a cartoon. Yeah. And I, of course, got killed a whole bunch of times because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm actually playing a cartoon. And this was, the early 80s, probably early to mid 80s. And I was just amazed. I was like, I am actually playing a cartoon. This isn't, a space shooter. This isn't, wow. I mean, I was just blown away because I'm like, wow, the future's actually, I mean, you're playing a cartoon. I know I've said that about 5 times. Not quite that many, but enough. Anyway, but for a kid in the 80s, this was just something actually getting to play. I figured, okay, the next thing is I'm going to get to play a movie or something, a live action movie. And that came not too much later on when you had games like Mad Dog McRae and stuff like that. Then, of course, another one that was way ahead of its time, too, was Us versus Them. Now, we used to have another place in Maryville. It was called Celebration Station, and it was kind of like Chuck E. Cheese, except for it had stuff for older kids to do, too. And they had Us versus Them there, but they had the sit-down kind where you sat, it wasn't just a upright cabinet. You actually sat down in this little thing, this, I don't know what the hell you call it. It wasn't a cocktail table. Do you know? I know what you're saying. Right. Anyway, so I sat in the thing, and I remember back then that all games cost 1 token. That was one of those places where you didn't just plug quarters in, you put $1 or whatever in the machine, and you got these little gold tokens. So this one actually cost 2 tokens. Actually, I think it may have cost 4. I don't remember. That's been 30 some years ago. But I put the quarter in. It had the same intro, kind of like Dragon's Lair and Space Ace did, and I'm thinking, well, okay. I put the quarters in. I mean, I put the tokens in, and it's going to be the same thing. They're going to have a cool intro, but then the game is going to be. But no, I mean, they actually had you projected into the game where you're actually, here's your spaceship and you're shooting and flying. The only problem with the game was that it cost so much. I mean, back in those days, let's be realistic. When you're going to a place like Celebration Station or the arcade, you only got so many quarters to play with. And are you going to want to play like Donkey Kong that's 1 quarter? Or are you going to play this really hard game that costs 2 quarters? No, you're going to want to play Donkey Kong. So, I mean, I don't know about other kids and if they played the game a lot, but I only played it a couple times because it cost 50 cents to play and the game was really hard. So, oh yeah, I mean, I agree. It was the same thing with me. Another thing that was irritating is some of those games broke real easily. Oh yeah, I mean, you'd come to the arcade and you would. Okay, sorry. God, I hate these pop-ups. Anyway, you would go to the arcade and you might want to play Dragon's Lair or one of those other games like that. And you get there and there's an out of order sign. as a kid, you didn't understand, the whole concept. I mean, we didn't know that the game actually ran on laser discs. I mean, most of us didn't even have laser disc players at home. Out of all my friends, I think only about one or two people I actually knew had a laser disc player. Most of us, of course, had video cassettes, and there was a few that had beta, but I think if they had it, they wouldn't admit to it. Anyway, so we didn't know what the hell was going on. We go there and we're like, out of order. I mean, it was kind of unheard of, believe it or not, for an arcade game to go out of order. You would go, to the arcade, and if the game was out of order, it meant probably that somebody kicked the shit out of it, because they got mad or something, and then the game went. So when you go to an arcade and you see out of order on a machine, and you're like, okay, what happened? Did somebody kick it? And then you find out that, the disc got stuck. And that was something I think that happened a lot to people that played these Laserdisc games, was that, the laser thing that would read the data off the disc, something would happen and it would get stuck or something. So those things would be broken quite a bit. I mean, more than any other game in the arcade, those were ones that were broken. Uh-huh. I love this guy. This is IE Postavid, one of long time. Yeah, that's true. Money I blew on that game. I remember as a kid one time I went to an amusement park with a church group, and I really didn't want to hang around anybody. I just kind of wanted to go on the same rides over and over again, and so I kind of snuck away and I went to the arcade they had, and they had Dragon's Lair there, and I'm like, all right. And I was surprised. I think it actually only cost $0.25 to play. So I just kept, playing. And of course, I died. I can't tell. I mean, there was only a few scenes at that time that, now I'm really good at it. I can actually get through the game. Anyway, I beat the game, but it took a while. So I was playing the game and I just kept dying and like, oh yeah, cool. You fell, that first scene where you trying to get across the lava and you got the rope. Yeah, I died there. I died pretty much everywhere. But oh yeah, that game keeps suckering you in. There is just no. Is this another pop up? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, I kept dying and I'm like, I don't give it. Pop another quarter in there. So, I gotta go to the bathroom. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, yeah. So I would play that game and then next thing I know, I'm out of money. I put my hand in my pocket. I'm like, oh shit. I ended up having to go home hungry and not get lunch there because I'd spent all the money I had in my pocket. It was supposed to be for lunch and and I ended up blowing it all playing Dragon's Lair. And well, not just Dragon's Lair. They had what was it? I played a lot of Paperboy. I love that way. You had the handlebar and you're just like, throwing the papers and stuff. God, that game was so much fun. You probably know the story about that amusement park. It was the one where the train went around the perimeter of the park and it went way too fast. Anybody that rode it, they would say, man, that thing went fast. And it ended up tipping over and killed some people. And then they shut the park down. And last I heard, it's like a botanical garden or something. But honestly, it was kind of like a poor man's Kiddieland. The rides there were like, the best ride I had there was the Mad Mouse, and you can only ride that so many times, but most of the rides there just sucked. Even the stage shows they tried to have in there sucked. The guys that were upstage performing, and they're like, man, is anyone out there? Well, let's keep going anyway. But the best part of it, it had a killer arcade. That much I will say. It had a killer arcade. And I had a lot of fun playing the arcade, but man, I tell you, I was ready to go home, and it was a long drive because it was about 2 hours away. It was, I live in Northwest Indiana and it was down in Indianapolis. So by the time I got home, man, I was like ravenous. I ran in the house and just made this sandwich like about this big and stuff. But That's not the first time, and it sure as hell wouldn't be the last time that I would kind of, spend a little too much money in an arcade. I'm sure other people have the same thing that happened to them. So, oh yeah, but I'll tell you, Dragon's Lair was it was really a one of a kind game. I mean, I honestly can't think of any other games. Well, maybe a couple, but none to that extreme that just hooked me in like that. Now Double Dragon did a few years later, but I mean that was different. The game was just fun, and you just like going around and beating up people and stuff. That was just fun. But I mean, just the whole visual, everything about Dragon's Lair. I mean, the cabinet. What is going on? Who is bugging me now? Oh, I'm gonna turn this. I'm gonna put this on vibrate because I'm getting tired of making all this noise. Let me just put this on vibrate real quick. There we go. But anyway, Dragon's Lair was just so intense. I mean, the cabinet was beautiful. Everything about it was just one of those type of games that, almost was hypnotic. It was like, you will play me. You will spend your whole allowance playing me. Even if you suck, you will do it. And you're like, I will play you. I will spend my allowance. But, and then, oh God, when was it? I think when the ports came out, that was probably the biggest disappointment. That has got to be one game that, honestly, I think it's the second or third, I don't remember, most ported game, in video game history. And out of all the ports, how many of them were any good? That's the thing you have to ask. I'd say probably most of them sucked. There were some of them that were okay. I mean, the ones for the computers weren't bad, but I mean, it was really hard to replicate that. Honestly, the ports were just terrible. But it's because people were trying to capture lightning in a bottle twice. I mean, that game probably made Don Bluth and them guys so much money. And people were happy to spend it. I mean, it was 50 cents to play, and then I don't remember if it cost another 50 cents to continue or if you continued for a quarter. I don't remember. But, I mean, that game you wanted to get through it, even though I actually didn't beat the game until many, many years later when I played a port of it, and that was the DVD version. I got it. God, when was that? Or was that? No. I actually beat it with the PC version. It was just like the arcade, except for the picture was very, very pixelated. That's what I'm talking. I did actually have DVD. Now, what I did was on that when I played it, I actually, it was kind of bad because you had to use the remote. And, it was like right, left, and then the enter button or the button like in the middle was supposed to be like the sword button. What I did was I played it on my PS2 and it worked just fine, because I think, the X button is on the PS2, I think is like the sword button and you can just use that. It worked just fine for me. It was funny because I'd played the game like so many, I beat it. Like I was just so happy because I couldn't beat the game as a kid. I beat it on the PC version, but the PC version was kind of, like I said, it was so pixelated and it would lock up sometimes. It would, freeze. And then, that was just bad. But I beat that too. But I'd beaten the game so many times. I know it's just hard to believe somebody actually says I've beaten Dragon's Lair so many times, but I beat the DVD version so many times. And at the time I was teaching high school, I had a lot of kids, of course, in my class that were gamers. And one of the kids that was one of my, he wasn't really in my class. He just kind of adopted me, like, hey, Mr. V, and he's like, hey, Mr. V, do you got any old games, that I could try? And I go, oh, okay. So I said, I got two of them here. I held up these DVDs. I said, this is Dragon's Lair and this is Space. I go for it. I said, if you like them, you can keep them. I mean, at that point, I'd played them and beat them so many times and stuff. And he came back. This was like on a Friday. And then Monday when he came back and he's like, that was fun. Are you sure I can? He's like, wow, that was. And I told him, I said, yeah, you should have been around in the 80s when those games came out, in the early 80s when those games came out. Because, I mean, this was, what year was this? Was like in 2008, 2009. And he was blown away by it. He just like, wow, this is intense. He was just absolutely blown away by the game. And he was just blown away. And he was like, holy crap. And this was in 2008 when games had really gone to the umpteenth level, and he just thought it was the greatest. I think he probably still I haven't talked to him for a while. I still keep in touch with some of the kids, and he loved it. So, I mean, that just says something about how many other games from then, you know, old style games would kids now or even years later be blown away by. I mean, you know, I tried showing it when I was teaching. I tried showing the kids, wow, Mr. V. So, but that DVD lets you unlock the machine emulator on the PC. That same. Oh, okay. Yeah. Like I said, when I had it on the PC, the PC version I had it came on a disc, just on a regular disc, and it said, you know, it came as a set. I remember that they were for Windows XP or 98, something like that. And you would put it on, you know, in the computer, and then like I said, it was real bad. It was, I don't know if my computer just wasn't fast enough, or if the, you know, the the disk drive wasn't fast, but I was like, ugh. But actually, I never played the, I remember what you're saying, yeah, but I actually didn't ever play the DVD on my computer because, like I said, I tried it on a regular DVD player, and then I played it on my PS2, and it used to even say, I think there was a sticker on the front that says works well with PS2 or something, so that's where I played it, you know, until I got bored of it, and then. But it took a while. I remember that when I saw it in the store, I'm like, oh, I have got to get this, because I never could beat the game as a kid. Kind of like Kabuki Quantum Fighter. I still haven't beat that game. It's been 30 some years, and I still, every time I try doing it, I get to a certain point, and then like something comes up, and then, you know, but this was, yeah, when I got it on DVD, I got the DVD, I'm like, I am going to beat this game. And I mean, if you played the game, you know it gets frustrating. But then it becomes just memorization. After a certain point, you pretty much memorize all the rooms. And okay, at this point, I press up, and then I hit the sword. And at this one, I press right, then left. And so, I mean, you got to a point where it becomes memorization. And even in the DVD, you would open it up, and they had, you know, they always had them inserts. Well, on the one I had, you would open up the insert, and then it would give you like a playthrough where it would tell you, okay, in this room, press right, then left, and then hit the sword button. So, I mean, you know, they tried to, even though still, it's still, you know, you got to time it just right. Dragon's Lair. It took me forever to beat Space Ace. I mean, that one was just hard. And you had to be so fast. You know, not only was the game harder, it was longer, and then you had to react so much faster. So, okay, well, I better check on Larry. Hey, what's going on with you? I'm coming. There we go. Like I said, I was kind of hoping I'd get more people on here. I mean, a lot of people aren't probably, you know, going out and about. So, I mean, I don't know. Thanks for your streaming videos and your concern for everyone. Oh, welcome. I mean, yeah, I do. I care about all you guys. I got a small following on here, and of course, you got other people that got hundreds, even thousands and millions of followers. But I care about you guys a lot. I know that sounds kind of corny and stuff and whatnot. It does. No one asked you. Sorry. But, I answer all emails I get and messages. And if you guys have suggestions for games you'd like to see or have me talk about or something, I try to accommodate because, you guys mean a lot. And I really appreciate all the messages I get from you guys. Whether here or on the Atari Age forums. So yeah, like I said, I enjoy talking with you guys. I enjoy the emails. I enjoy the messages and especially when I get one saying, "Oh man, I never knew that before." I was really that was cool. I never knew about that game before. So so one thing I do like to do research. Of course, not just here. Not just here, but when for my writing and other things, like for instance, I was visiting that one YouTuber's channel. Kim Justice. Yeah, Kim Justice, and that's where I learned about the Speccy and the Amstrad CPC, which are interesting because those computers are interesting because they're kind of similar. The Speccy, the ZX Spectrum, is almost like the British version of the MS-DOS, CGA graphics. And so we got quite a few similarities, and then except for, theirs are like in other shades, but, CGA was, what was it, pink, white, and then that weird like blue-green color or something. So like I said, yeah, I saw that, and, somebody like, "Oh my God, that's horrible. That's ugly," and I'm like, yeah, but they're different colors, but it was pretty much like what we had for CGA back in the day. That's why, it was the same thing as we had. So just in different shades. So, and we weren't complaining back then. So I don't know. I got to make a call. Oh, go ahead. But it was the same thing, one thing I've always noticed is it's easy for old school gamers to move forward. Most of us, we started off on the Atari 2600 or even earlier, like we may have started off on the Magnavox Odyssey. And so it's easy for us to move into new gaming systems, new computers, but it's really hard. It's much harder, I think, for new gamers to go back and play the old stuff because it's so much different. Games are so much more advanced now in so many ways than they were back when, like, I was young, because I'm 45, and we just thought the games back then were just so amazing. We think about like Pitfall. And, when Activision games came out, they were all so mind blowing back then and still are. But back then it was even more like, wow, look at this game, Pitfall 2. And the list goes on and on about how the games that came out in the early 80s just pushed the 2600 to its limits. And even now, when you have like a John Champeau or a Thomas Jensch that make these new homebrew games, it still sometimes is just hard to believe, like, wow, that is on the 2600. It is. It's really interesting to look back and see these game systems and how they've evolved over time. And sometimes not for the better. Granted, games today have 3D graphics. They got all this stuff going on. But the question is, are they fun? You look at a game like Red Dead Redemption, the Grand Theft Auto series. Are the games fun? And if you say no, then I have to say, well, why are you playing them for? Why are you spending 50, 60 bucks on a game that's not fun, or that you're going to play a couple times, you're going to beat it, and then you're probably just going to go back to GameStop and trade it in? I mean, we didn't do that back in the day. I remember when we would buy an Atari game, it was a long-term investment. We would buy games, and the only way we would get rid of them, I remember, is if, our parents decided, okay, well, you haven't played this in a while, we're going to sell it at the yard sale, or, the church needs donations, or, something like that. But I mean, we didn't have a GameStop back when I was young, so you would go to a buddy's house and they may have like 20, 30, 40 games, them cartridges. And hey, have you played that? No, not for a while, but I still got it. Okay. Okay. But that's just how it was back in the day. We would buy games, and then you have like some kind of holder. I mean, my dad made us one. It was really cool. It was like wooden, and it had the slots in it to put the games in. And he put almost like this little alcove kind of thing in the back. It slid down where you could put the instruction books and catalogs and all that. Remember, that's something else that's different today. Remember back when we were kids, you open that box and there was all kinds of goodies in there. You had an instruction manual, warranty card, sometimes stickers, and a game catalog. You had all kinds of stuff. Now, you just get the game. That's it. You just open the box and there's the game. Set it on, hit and play the game. And if you want instruction manuals, you got to go online. I know it's just saving trees, and I'm all for that, but it just, it's a little sad, I guess. Anyway, but my dad made this really cool one. I think that sucker held like maybe 10 cartridges, and of course, that accommodated us for a little while. And then we got this one with the drawers, and it held like about 20 or so. And then we had to get another one. So, I mean, by the time we got our NES, well, actually, we'd had a 2600 and broke one of the joysticks. Don't ask me how. It took a beating, and we didn't even have the Activision Decathlon game. I don't remember how the hell I think it just got played too much. I don't know. And the joystick died. We got another one. It was real funky looking too. It was like orange and white, and it had this little orange ball on top of it. And okay, and then I don't know what happened to the 2600. It just kind of, I remember that thing, we had that sucker for years and years and years and years. And then my dad's like, well, they got this new thing called the 7800 because, we skipped the 5200. And let's get to that 7800. So we got to 7800, and then, the 7800 could play the 2600 games. And they had, we didn't play multiple game systems. We would have one game system, and then when that ran out of gas, it got boxed up, and then we'd have the new one. If you go in my house downstairs in my man cave, I got three. I got my PS4, I got my Atari 2600, and my Magnavox Odyssey 2 all hooked into the same TV. And I also got a couple other things that, you can switch the HDMI and stuff too. But so when the NES, so yep, that was, that's how it was. And now I'll be getting into 8-bit games a little more pretty soon, but I would say, as a former teacher, I like to do stuff in units, I guess, for lack of a better term. And like right now I'm on the 5200 unit. I'm right now I did the episode on the rare and valuable games. I did part 1 of the prototypes, because there are just so many prototypes for the 50. There are just not as many, of course, as the 2600. But there's quite a few prototypes for the 5200, and Then eventually, not too much longer, I'm going to be getting into the NES unit. And we'll talk about that because, believe it or not, we talk about how many people were just blown away about how many prototypes there were for the Atari 2600. I mean, there were so many of them. But believe it or not, there's actually more for the NES. And I looked it up doing my research, and I'm like, holy shit. I mean, there's a lot of prototypes for this thing. And oh yeah, there were, but I'll get into why that was when I get into the video. I'll explain why there's so many prototypes for the NES and the whole thing behind that, because there's several good reasons why there were so many prototypes for the NES. Different reasons, and of course there were for the 2600. So that'll be coming soon. Now, I was one who really enjoyed the NES. I had a lot of fun playing it with playing by myself, and then, with friends, because there were just so many great games from so many different genres for the NES. I honestly have to say that some of the best sports games I ever played were for the NES. I didn't get into Intellivision until I was an adult. At the time, growing up, none of my friends had an Intellivision. My mom's brother had an Intellivision, but he lived in Minnesota. And I played that for the first time. God, it was okay. I can tell you exactly when it was. That was Christmas of 1982. I played the Intellivision for the first time. I remember I love that Dungeons and Dragons game, Cloudy Mountain, that game. I sucked at it and still do, but man, I had so much fun playing it. I used to love that sound it would make when you got like, and then you go up in a puff of smoke. I love that game. That was just so much fun. And so anyway, I wouldn't actually get back into Intellivision until I was an adult. And yeah, it's true what they say about Intellivision just having the best sports games, because they did. I mean, and the best part about the Intellivision sports games is you could make up your own teams, and you could have like, okay, on my team, and we would do this sometimes, but with Real Sports Baseball, I would play against my friend who also is named Anthony, and we would create our teams. We would write down who our team was. So like it would be like an all-star team, and then we would pick baseball players from that time period. Like, okay, I got Andre Dawson. I want Andre Dawson. Okay, well, you have Andre Dawson, and I'll have Frank Thomas, or whoever. Like I want Ron Kittle on my team. Really showing my age there. And so we would make up our own teams, and I was like, all right, next up is Andre Dawson. He'd come out there, and then and knock it out of there. Or sometimes my friend picked, all right, I got Wade Boggs, and then he would hit a home run. I don't think Wade Boggs hit like a whole lot of home runs during his career, but anyway. And you could do the same thing with the Intellivision game. All those sports games were just fun to. Really had a lot of fun, especially they were a lot of more fun if you really weren't that good at sports in real life. You could live vicariously through a video game. But yeah, like I said, honestly, though, I have to say the absolute best basketball game I've ever played has to be Tecmo Basketball for the NES. I touched on it briefly in my basketball episode, but I'll be honest, I love that game. It was, you got to play real teams, real players, and that was something totally new because, in the old days when I had played, on the television, when I had played it on the Atari, we just had to pretend who the team were. And of course, I've said this before, other than a one-on-one game, basketball games don't work on the 2600. They just don't, unless it's a one-on-one, because, you need one button for pass and another button to shoot. That's just how it is. So it wasn't going to work on a 2600. It just wasn't going to work, and it never did. So now you have the NES, and you got two buttons. Okay, that's perfect for a basketball game. And Tecmo basketball was just great because you played the season. It had injuries. It had real players, realistic stats. Just, oh, man, that was fun. The only problem would be sometimes, I don't know if any of the other, and the rest of you that are watching this or will watch it, if you had the problem like I did when you were playing it sometimes and the game would freeze and you would lose your season. And you're like, oh, no. Especially if you're like not even halfway through or you're almost done or whatever. I mean, anytime you lose your game data, it just totally sucks. But with the Tecmo Bowl and the Tecmo basketball, Tecmo Bowl, and all them, they didn't have them codes. I know that the Angry Video Game Nerd talked about those long, elaborate codes that you would have for like save games for other different games. This one, the Tecmo basketball, didn't have that. It would actually just, it would save it. I don't know how it did it. Some of you, of course, are way ahead of me on this, and you know how the game actually saved your progress without a code. I mean, that's something many of you probably understand perfectly. That I'm way behind on that. So, but that's one game that I do. Oh, I got itch my. Oh my gosh, shave my mustache is getting too big. But that is one of those games that I do still go back and play again and again. I'll play multiple teams. Like I'll have the Chicago Bulls, the Hornets, the Knicks, and then I'll run multiple teams through a season. And it's really fun when you are playing a game with two of your teams, because then you can really get their stats up. I mean, you can have score like 50, 60 points in a game, and you'll be way up there on the top when they check the records and stuff. But yeah, that was a fun one. Like I said, the NES was just an amazing game system. It has to be one of those, the Atari 20 game-changing, pun intended, a game-changing video game system. The Atari 2600 was one. The NES was another. And I guess you could say the PlayStation was another one. Yeah, those definitely were the big ones, in my opinion, anyway. I mean, some of you probably feel differently, and I know you do. But yeah, like I said, the NES was just so much fun. I mean, there were so many games and so many different so many different genres that, and the games weren't all that expensive. Of course, also you have to take into account inflation. That's one thing us old people kind of forget sometimes when we say, back in my day, the games cost a lot less. But yeah, there was also this thing called inflation. So I was explaining that to my daughter the other day a couple of weeks ago, we went to FYE and they had records, LPs of some newer bands and stuff. She goes, oh, them are expensive. And, they're like $30, sometimes $30, $40. And I'm like, well, technically with inflation, that's what they cost back in when I was a kid. So, I mean, you got to kind of, you can't really say that, back when I was a kid, records were $9.99, because $9.99 back then was equivalent to like $40 back, $30 or $40 an hour or something like that. So, I mean, it was, we have to take that into account too. So, but anyway, we're coming up on 45 minutes. Probably go for about 15 more minutes. See any questions or anyone wants to add anything in. It was really nice to see EI posted it. It's always good to see him. He's been a long time supporter and viewer of this channel, and I do appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you. I don't have as many subscribers as some other people, but they've also been doing this for a lot longer than I have. But I enjoy the small group and the small followers that I do have. It's always great to hear from you guys. And yeah, I do care about you guys, because I'm one of those type of people that really does care a lot about friends and people like that. So I worry about people that I haven't heard from in a while. That's just how I am. Okay. Anyway, what was I saying now? Okay, some upcoming stuff. As I said, I'm in the midst of a 5200 unit. Also, another viewer out there asked me to do an episode about showing the emulators I use. So that is coming up soon because, yeah, I would be glad to show you guys the emulators I use because it's a royal pain to record game footage. If any of you have ever tried it of a real game system, the older ones, it is a royal pain. You got to hook stuff in and sometimes there's a delay. And see, PlayStation 4 makes it easy because if on your joystick, listen to me, your controller, you have a button on the side, right? There's a button like right up here. You just double click it and it starts recording your game footage. Real easy. Imagine if we had that back in the day. Although back in the day, why would we need it? But anyway, so it's real easy nowadays to do it on the PS4. I mean, I got some really cool footage I'm going to show on that too. I mean, I haven't really shown any PS4 games yet, but I got some game footage from the games that I do play. And I'll probably put them into my, I guess you could call it my, what I use, Instant Classic. Yeah, that's it. Like the Instant Classic games, because there are some just amazing games for the PS4. Actually, I'll start with this next one because on the Laserdisc games, I purchased the Dragon's Lair trilogy, which you can't, any of you that have a PS4, you can actually purchase it, and it has Dragon's Lair 1, Dragon's Lair 2, and Space Ace all together for $20. Yeah, it's definitely worth it, especially since none of those games work on MAME. Now, honestly, I believe a long time ago, and maybe I'm dreaming, I dreamt it or whatever, but I do distinctly remember playing Us versus Them on some version of MAME. I know the very old one, it doesn't show the background, and you got the plane, and there's a blue screen, but I distinctly remember playing Us versus Them with the video and everything, but for some reason, it doesn't work anymore. I don't know what the hell happened, but I mean, it may have just been something that they put in because I remember playing Neo Geo games on MAME, and now you got to have a whole separate emulator for them, which I don't mind. I mean, Neo Geo had some great games. Those are going to be coming up soon too. I think I've shown a couple Neo Geo games in previous videos, but I'm going to show more of those. I'm going to do more of the kids games, kids and learning games, and notice when I put those up, I always have those listed as, kid friendly. That way, you can, now most of my videos are kid friendly for the most part. And of course, anytime you let your kids, grandkids watch a video, you should kind of preview it ahead of time to make sure that, they're not going to be watching something and then all of a sudden you hear like penis or something like that. And you're like, what did he say? And then you got to cover the kids' ears and all that stuff. Anyway, but you're not going to see that on my video except for this live stream right now. And anyway, not sack, but now when I do the kids videos, I always make sure that, like I said, that they are kid friendly. So that way you can have like your grandkids, or if you happen to, have young kids, you can show them and say, well, does that look like a game you'd like to play? And like, oh yeah, I want to play Rita Rabbit, or I want to play Mixed Up Mother Goose. And you can say, okay, well, I can get it for free somewhere. We'll get it and put it on the computer and you can play it. Because, being a parent myself and being a former teacher, I loved, having games that the kids could play. I remember when I taught physics, I actually gave the kids copies of The Incredible Machine. And I said, okay, tell me how far you got in this game. This was an extra credit assignment. I said, okay, tell me how far you got on this game. And I would base the extra credit, I would say, like, if it was going to be, extra credit, I would give them like so many points or something. And I said, show me how far you got. And some of them would go a little ways through the training missions. And they're like, ugh. And then you had a couple of them that they would get past the training missions and then just lose it later on. But that's just something really cool. If you can incorporate games into learning, that that's something great, especially for kids. Kids, and regardless of time that's going on, and the kids have the phones, but learning games are pretty much the same, 40 years ago as they are now. Learning games really don't change much. The graphics may be fancier and whatever, but learning game, Reader Rabbit, stuff, Rocky's Boots, stuff like that. You're gonna learn. The kids are gonna learn just as good on those games as they learn nowadays on some game on your phone. So, I highly check out those kid game videos if you haven't already. And write some of this stuff down and say, man, I'm gonna let my kid Junior would love Mixed Up Mother Goose. I'm gonna write that down. So, as a lot of those are of course available lots of other places, usually for free or just off of Steam for a couple bucks or something. Let's see what else. Now the 7800, there are not a lot of games for it. I kind of like there are. I think there were less games on the 7800. Than there were on the 5200, so that's going to be kind of like a short unit. Actually, some of the games for the 7800 I've covered in other episodes before. Like, for instance, I know in the golf, because that Mean 18 Golf was the first golf game that used the 3-button method, the 3-tap method. And, of course, I talked about that. It's also a collectible, and because the game is actually kind of rare. So when I do rare and valuable 7800 games, which the list is even smaller than the one on the 5200, it'll be mentioned on there. That reminds me before I go. Somebody mentioned, I got some emails from some people that told me that there was actually some games I forgot for the 5200, the rare and valuable, that they said Boulder Dash 2, and I'm like, I went through all these lists and I never saw Boulder Dash and Boulder Dash 2. I know they were released for computers. I mean, yeah, that's where most of us played Boulder Dash for the first time, was on the computer. And they're like, yeah, but they got it released in limited edition and for the 5200. And I did research, and yeah, they were right. But as the games were extremely rare, they never got dumped. Same thing with this other game called Rent Wars. I couldn't even find game footage of any of those three. So let me just add that, yeah, they were not really mass produced. They were limited edition 5200 games, but you're not going to find the ROMs of them. So I found a few of them on eBay. They were going for quite a bit of money, but you need to have a working 5200 in order to play those games. As like I said, they weren't dumped. So maybe someday, but don't hold your breath. And of course, I'm going to keep going with the arcade versus port, because I got some great games on there that I have. There's some great games that on the arcade versus port side where we have some really some cool games, and when you see the ports of them, you're kind of like, and of course, I got to do Choplifter, because Choplifter was the very first game that was actually a computer game before it was an arcade game. So, and yeah, the arcade game and then, later ports of it were, pretty cool. I mean, the game was cool back in the day when you played on the Apple II computer, but, they really hyped it when it got released on the arcade. It was like, wow. It was a lot harder too, of course, because that's what they did. When they released on the arcade, it was a heck of a lot harder than it was when they released it on the, when they released it for the on the computer version, because it was a computer game first. So I'll keep doing more AVPs, trying to think any other things that are coming up, other than it's going to be kind of business as usual. Of course, like I said, I'm going to try to keep this going. Maybe I'll post stuff more frequently. Yeah, I'll probably do some stuff more frequently. I want to, try to lift everyone's spirits if I can. I like, let you guys know that, yeah, I'm thinking about all of you, and I'm hoping all of you are doing okay, that you're with your families, that you guys are all healthy and you're all taking the right precautions, proper precautions, so that you don't get sick. Because I don't want any of my subscribers or anyone I know getting sick. This is a bad thing. This is not the flu. This is not the cold. This is a lot worse. So you gotta be vigilant. Make sure you wash your hands. Be careful. And especially if you got older people in your family, just stream, use your phone and video message grandma and grandpa. Say, hey, how you doing? Yeah, look, hey, yeah, look, hey, pass the phone. Say hi to grandma. Do something like that. I mean, don't, those of you that are blessed to still have your grandparents or your parents, do the streaming thing, get Skype, anything like that. Please take care of the elderly, take care of your older relatives, take care of people that have pre-existing health issues, people with asthma, people with other things, like I said, take care of each other. But keep in touch. I mean, use the phone, use Skype, and see grandma, grandpa, crazy Uncle Billy, and everybody, and say, hey, love you, hope you're feeling fine, and stuff like that. But like I said, just be vigilant. Just take care of yourself, and then take care of others. Like I said, this is rough. I mean, we're all in this. It doesn't matter if you are the average Joe that works at the grocery store, or if you're one of those big wigs on Wall Street. We're all affected by this. This thing does not just pick and choose, the people. It's going to affect all of us. So take care of yourself. Wash your hands. Clean the surfaces. Use Clorox and bleach and stuff like that. Use the Lysol. Wash your hands. I keep saying it. Wash your hands, and really wash your hands. Use hand sanitizer. Keep your distance from each other. Don't go out unless you really, really have to. There's different things that are on the CDC website, and that we all can do, and hopefully this will end sooner than later. But in the meantime, we have to be vigilant. We have to look after each other. We have to look after ourselves. So, just take care of yourselves. And like I said, I'm going to try to post stuff a little more frequently now, so that, you'll have something to look at. But again, don't forget, check out the old episodes. I got a list created, so you can go to my main page here, and I've got all the AVP. I've got the sports games. I've got the rare and valuable games all in a playlist. So feel free to binge and bring, like if, mom and dad and the hey, come and check this guy out. Check out this fat guy with the puppets, and you all can, watch them, and let the relatives know that you're Skyping with, like, hey, you're not doing much. Watch this goofy guy, this goofy fat dude that plays with puppets, and he talks about old video games. Tell your friends and family about that so they can watch too. Like I said, we'll get through this. We will. Let's just take care of ourselves, take care of each other, look after each other, and just try to be strong. This is a time, and things like this is when we really got to come together. Unfortunately, I mean figuratively, because we probably shouldn't be coming together, but should be looking after each other. Check on friends and family, check on relatives, and, make calls, talk to people you haven't called in a while, or email somebody you haven't emailed in a while, and, just take care of each other. All right, well, I've been on here for an hour, and I think that's the longest I've actually spoke straight, when I wasn't teaching, and it's been a couple years since I've been teaching. So it was great to see IE post a vid. I'm gonna try to do this again later in the week. So so I'll be here, but again, like I said, just feel free to stop by, leave your comments. I know now most of you are going to be seeing this post live. So like I said, stop by when I do the next one. It should be in a couple days. And I'll be glad to chat with all of you. So again, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, then. Well, I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, have yourselves a safe and a great day. All right, bye.